Stay tuned till the end of the episode. I have a special announcement for you. What happened to Keith and the food truck? Is he still running it? Is he overwhelmed by his kids, the military, his full time day job, and is he still serving tacos? One of the questions you always ask is what happened to the people that have been part of the coaching series. So, welcome to a special episode where we are going to find out what happened to Keith and what he learnt through his set of experiments. The extraordinary belongs to those that create it. Rebelling against business plans and debt, rebelling against what society expects of us to build cool businesses, make money, have fun, and do good. Let's create something extraordinary together. Welcome to the Rebel Entrepreneur. One of the questions I always get asked is what happened to Keith? What happened to Christina? What happened to the people on the Rebel Entrepreneur Coaching Series? So, welcome to a very special episode of the Rebel Entrepreneur Coaching Series where we have back with us Mr. Keith Hunt from Red Headed Step Tacos. Welcome back, Keith.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here. It's been a while.
It has been a while, and I'm dying to know what happened to you? What went on? The last time we knew, you went all in, you took the food truck, you were trading, you were making money, you were producing tacos, which I think is a very noble cause in my particular world. What happened?
Wow, that is a loaded question. It's been a roller coaster ride for sure. I think the last time we talked, I had just done kind of my first experiments and had signed the year-long lease. And I learned enough from that to know that I needed to make a few tweaks to make it really viable long term. And one of those big things was
Mm.
finding a commissary where I could store my food and allow me to prep in advance. And so, yeah, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but I did find a local business, actually a daycare, who had a commercial kitchen license and everything. And so I got set up
Yes.
there. Yep, and that was really the missing puzzle that I kind of made it, doable. So I actually made the decision to hold off on events for a month or two during the summer. One, because it was extremely hot, and two, because I really wanted to get that commissary in place. And so once I got that in place, I got off the ground, just started signing up for any and every event that I could find in the city. So.
I remember you nearly passing out trying to work the food truck in the summer with the heat, and you were messaging me saying, "This is killing me in the heat." You're in Arizona in the desert trying to run a food truck with flames around you in the middle of the heat. It's probably going to be tough. Does anyone run food trucks in Arizona in the summer?
Only crazy people, I guess, because at least in my town, I would say a good number, more than half, if not all of them, shut down during the hotter months. So, yeah, it was not ideal to get launched in May or June or whenever it was of last year.
We kind of had a case of that at several points where the timing of things never quite worked out. Like we got the truck, but then it was a mad dash to get the license, and then we had to launch at this time, and then we were launching right in the summer. And yeah, do you have any reflections about timing, the timing of the whole thing, how that worked, what happened?
Yeah, that's looking back on or listening back, I should say, on the previous episodes. Obviously, those aired, much later than when they were recorded, and so it was interesting to go back and listen and part of me was like, wow, I was naive, but another part of me was kind of proud of everything that went on leading up to the launch, and it did become clear that you can't always control everything. Didn't exactly plan, like you said, to launch it during the summer when it was 115 degrees, but you just kind of have to roll with it. I think in a way it can be good to could have been good because it gave me a few months to kind of get things in place before the weather cooled down. So I think if you have a plan in place and you're using your time wisely, then it can turn out to be a good thing. But yeah, definitely was not exactly expected, and I could have done a better job of planning and using the time to my advantage. So.
So you launched. We had a break in the summer, and then you signed up to all of the events you could. What was that like running around the city, running those events whilst having a full time job, 8 kids, and being in the military?
It was very difficult, I will say. So, like I said, it was. Like I said, it was a bit of a roller coaster. So I did end up finding some help. Actually, one of my neighbors just a couple doors down, they have a teenage daughter who was looking to get a job. So hired her along with a couple of her friends, and that helped out a lot. And but and then I basically just as I mentioned, looked around for every event I could find. So I went to food truck Friday events that they had once a month at one of the communities. I went to vendor fairs that they had a couple times a month, nonprofit events, and yeah, it was a bit difficult. Obviously, I had to stick to weekends for the most part, which made it hard to really maximize my profits. Saturdays wasn't a problem because I wasn't at work. Fridays, I will say it was pretty stressful, a lot of anxiety, trying
Mm.
to make sure I could get off work in time and get to the event. So that that was definitely one of the low low points you could say was just the extra stress of oh, am I gonna give myself enough time? Am I gonna jeopardize my day job and that kind of thing? So.
So the Saturdays were better. Like the Fridays were a nightmare. The Saturdays were better. Did you trade on Sundays as well, or did you do 2 days a week?
No, had considered it, and to be honest, I actually you'll like this one, Alan. There was a British guy in our community who started a boot sale. he he wanted to bring
Oh,
part
car
of
boot
his
sales.
yeah, exactly. So it turned out to be more of just kind of a vendor fair, but he was doing it on Sundays, once or twice a month, I think. And he was, I got to give it to him. He was persistent. He was going around passing out flyers, and I saw him all over town spreading the word. And he kept inviting me, and he said, "Oh, this would be great to have you here. Oh, this and that." And I'm like, you know what? It looks like a great event. I'm sure it is, but I'm like, well, Sunday is my one day off that I get to be with the family, and I don't think that my mental state can handle it. So I never took the leap on the Sunday.
Well, I do think there is limits even to your capacity to work and produce and do things, Keith. So I think having time off to spend with your family is critically important. Critically important. So a couple of numbers questions. You started training. You're doing sort of Friday evening and Saturday day. So you're doing sort of a day and a half a week. What was that producing? Was it making money? Were you paying more out through wages and food than you were getting in? Were you generating income enough to pay the monthly fees on the truck, the monthly loan back to the guy who gave you the truck? Like, how was it going financially through that period?
So it was a bit rough. I kind of learned which type of events were good, which is another difficult thing about having the truck versus, having an actual restaurant. When I had the restaurant in Ohio, I could actually pull up, on my app all my numbers, and I could compare it week to week, and it was fairly predictable. Which days were slower, that kind of a thing. Whereas with the going around, hopping around to events, it was, especially if it was one I'd never been to, it was just a total shot in the dark sometimes. And so I'd prepare for 200 sales, and I might get 50, or prepare for 100, get 25 or something.
Wow.
So that made it really hard because you might have extra food, which is going to eat up on your cost. I would say definitely the labor made it difficult to make a profit. I was trying to pay my people, good wages. They were talking about raising the minimum wage here in the U.S. to $15 an hour, and in my state, I think it's around 12 or so right now. And so I said, oh, you know what? I'm just going to be proactive. I'm just going to start at the 15. So if it changes to that, I'm not. It doesn't take me by surprise. And it was good for my workers, but not so good for me. So, like I said, I had three workers, so $45 an hour. I'd have to be bringing in just to cover my wages. And so, to answer your question, there were a lot of events, a lot of days where I was basically breaking even just on the food and the labor costs. And a couple times I tried to go bare bones and just go out on my own on a Saturday, and it was doable. I'd worked a lunch and a dinner session on my own, and just kind of had a steady trickle of customers. I think I brought in like $600 or $700 in sales in maybe only 5 or 6 hours. And so, in that case, I was a little more profitable, but obviously not sustainable. And so, yeah, it definitely became clear that operating just Fridays, Saturdays, and one weekend not even able to operate due to the army, that it was not exactly a viable long term solution. So.
So sounds like you were sort of slowly realizing this was not going to bring you the money and not going to get you where you wanted to get to. Did you have you closed it down? Have you finished the mini experiment? It's kind of a maxi experiment, wasn't it? But have you finished the truck experiment?
Yeah, so that is basically the conclusion I came to. It just not even so much the financial side, because but the time commitment, juggling with the day job mostly. I did have at work, I had asked for my job for some flexibility, and initially they had granted me that, but there may have been some miscommunication. It seems like later they may have intended for me to continue to work 40 hours if I had to leave early on a Friday. I guess I should have been making it up Monday through Thursday, which, I
Mm.
wasn't, it wasn't clear at the beginning. And so once they started kind of cracking down on that, it made it even more difficult for me to get out there, and just kind of added more stress. And so I would say the experiment worked to the extent of seeing how it would do in the market, and just getting a feel for how the truck would go. But it definitely became clear that doing it 3, 4, or 5 times a month while working the day job was just not going to bring in the revenue that I needed, and was having a toll on my mental health, family life. And so, yep, I ended up deciding to shut it down near the end of my lease. As you may remember, it was a lease with the option to buy, and so all my payments, could be credited
Yes.
towards the purchase price at any time. And so I was relying on those child tax credit payments that I was getting for the final half of last year. And I will say it was a tight end of the year, Christmas, with 8 kids. You can imagine the budget for that. And, those payments were ending, and it was rough. I will say, to say the least. My wife was pretty worried. Are we gonna have a Christmas? And luckily, I had some family that really stepped up, and without us even asking, I had 3 or 4 family members that just said, "Hey, let us help you out. We can see that you're kind of struggling. Here's something to help you guys out." So, were it not for that, honestly, we would have had a very sad Christmas. And somehow I was able to pull out of it, make my payments on time to the guy, but definitely realized through it that I should have had some funds in the bank, for a worst case scenario like this, where we weren't. able to get out there and make the money that we were hoping.
Interesting. Okay. So in the end, you just handed back the truck after the year. You stepped away from taking those credits towards actually buying the truck and moved on. So the guy's got his truck back. He's going to try and sell it again. And you are free from that contract.
So not exactly. There's another twist. So basically, by the time I
There's always another twist. I love it.
yes. So by the time that I made the decision, that it wasn't going to be a good long term solution, I had already paid 9 or 10 months into the contract, and so at that point, I basically would have been losing more money by pulling out than to just pay him off the remainder that was owed towards the purchase. And so I figured even if I
Okay.
don't do it at all, I'd come out on top by purchasing it from him. I think I owed about like $12,000 more or something on it, but I'd already put in close to 30 or whatever it was. And so by paying him off, then I was able to title it in my name, and then I had several options. I think that was the right decision because I could, A, sell it, B, hang on to it until I was in a better position to make a better use of it, or C, this is what I actually ended up doing was leveraging it to pay off some higher interest debt. So I actually, once I paid it off, I got a consolidation loan with low interest, and I was actually able to consolidate all of my outstanding credit cards, and so it worked out so far. The my payments, went down. I'm on a fixed, term with my debts, and my credit score went up like over 100 points overnight.
So you consolidated some high interest rate credit card debt and took out a note on the truck to pay off all of that and consolidate all those debts into one place.
Yep, exactly. And I was still kind of unsure of what I would do with the truck. I was thinking about leasing it out. That was another option, was to lease it out to someone, and then I could actually have some monthly cash flow from it without all the work of going out and making tacos. So I considered that, but in the end, what I felt most at peace with was deciding to put it on the market. So I've actually got it on the market. I sat on it for a couple months and just seemed like a insurmountable task to worry about selling it. And one day I just woke up. I'm like, you know what? Today's the day. I stopped by the trailer storage on the way to work. I snapped a couple photos. I put it on Facebook Marketplace, and have a couple people I'm working with right now that seem interested. So I'm just trying to work that out. But definitely knew it was the right decision when when I committed to it and just felt kind of a weight lifted and knew that now was not the right time, to go all in. So
So if you sell off the truck, will that be enough to pay off all of the debts you have and get you back to zero?
almost. So definitely all of the ones I consolidated to the credit cards. Yeah, definitely it'll be enough to pay those off, and then I'll just be left with my car payment. So
Okay, so just the car payment at the end.
yep, and definitely feeling good about that. Just getting on that fixed payment plan. We were making minimum payments for who knows how many years, and just not making any traction. And just that simple act of getting on a fixed term just lightened my load a lot as well. So I think that was a blessing in the end.
Well, it sounds like the right thing to do to sell this, Keith, to consolidate all those things to get back to zero and then buy yourself some breathing time. Are you already planning the next mini experiment, the next adventure, or are you going to take a breath? Are you going to take a breather? Are you planning to spend more time with your kids in the future? Where's your head at right now?
Yeah, that's I've taken a lot of time to think about that, and basically where I've landed is, like I said, now it's just not the right time. I think an ideal scenario would be debt free with 6 months of personal savings in the bank, and possibly even 6 months of potential business expenses. And that would basically put me in a position of strength to where the business could go south, and I could still not basically not have to worry. Am I going to be able to put food on the table? Am I going to be able to give my kids a good Christmas? So that's kind of where I'm at now, and definitely helped me realize that I need to be spending quality time with the kids. It was rough, leaving on the weekends, being gone all day after having worked all week at the day job. And one other thing about that, my kids have been um, bugging me about doing a lemonade stand. Somehow it had come up months and months ago, and and we had never gotten around to doing it. And then I had some friends, several friends and family, who ended up giving us some fresh lemons from their trees. Arizona is very well known for its citrus production, and so I had about 2, 3 boxes of fresh lemons. And what do you do with 3 boxes of fresh lemons? So we did the lemonade stand in our neighborhood, and the kids loved it. They made over $100 combined in the matter of 2 or 3 hours,
Whoa.
and they were super excited. I actually got them some debit cards through my bank. They now have like a little account you can get where it's linked to yours, and so they all have a debit card with their name on. We got the money. We actually ended up going to the car boot sale, and they wanted to spend some of their money, and so they got to use their little debit cards, and they were so happy they got to sign their names on the phones with their finger, could barely sign, their initials on there. And so yeah, through all of that, it kind of helped me realize, like, this could be a fun thing to spend time in a business with my kids. They loved it. I had a good time. They made some money. And part of me even said, "Hey, maybe I should convert my taco truck into a lemonade truck," But in the end, the conclusion I came to, like I said, was now is not the right time. But I think down the road, doing something that involves the whole family, could be a great experience for all of us. But just the time's not right now. So
Keith, I love that you've come on the show and you've told us what happened, what went on. I think it's incredibly brave. I also love the fact you did a business with your kids. Like, what an amazing opportunity for them to see you literally turn lemons into lemonade and sell it, and they got money. And what an incredible experience for them. I think what I'd love to do with you now is to help share what you have learnt through this experience with everyone listening, because that's the whole point of a mini experiment, is to learn. The whole thing is like, let's run an experiment, let's do it with as little debt as possible, let's test these things out, let's learn. And you've gone all in, and you've done a huge experiment with all sorts of different aspects, but it's the learning. And even though this wasn't the success we wanted, we can still get huge value out of it for us and everyone else listening by thinking about what we've learnt from it. So I'd love that. Like, where would you start? I have ideas, but I want to know what you've learnt from this experiment.
yeah, I'd like to add on to what you said there about it wasn't exactly the success we anticipated, but you can still gain value. I did have someone in my family. They meant well, but when I made the decision to close it down, they made a comment like, "Well, you gave it your best shot," something like that. Where I think it meant to be come across positive, but it was kind of the implication was, well, it was a failure, but at least you tried your best. And I really kind of bothered me that night. I'm like, you know what? It wasn't a failure in my mind. It didn't, like I said, it didn't necessarily produce the results that I wanted. But in my mind, an experiment is successful if you learn something from it, whether that be, oh yes, this is going to work, let's keep going, or this isn't going to work. So I would first say to your listeners, just because something doesn't turn out the way it doesn't mean it was a failure. It was a learning experience, and it at least taught you if nothing else, taught you how not to do something, at minimum. but you probably learned a lot of other things along the way. So I don't feel like it was a failure. But as far as what I learned, I would say the importance of planning things out, getting it on paper, considering the worst case scenarios. I could have said, okay, yes, I've got money coming in to cover the trailer payment for these first 6 months, but what happens after that if things don't go well? And I would definitely recommend, like I mentioned before, going into something with some cash reserves for your personal expenses as well as your business, and that will give you some peace of mind, knowing that you are going to be able to take care of yourself, without extra anxiety, revolving around the business.
I love those. Just building on what you've said in a couple of places, the importance of planning things out. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions with the content that I have created. When I tell people not to do business plans, I'm meaning not to do a formal business plan. I'm not saying don't think about what's going to happen, don't make notes, don't plan out in your head. And I'd love to say to everyone listening to this, like, you don't need a formal business plan where you say the taco market in Arizona is worth X million per year and I will gain 3% of this market. Like, that doesn't help you. But thinking out, this is what I'm borrowing, this is what I'll owe each month, this is where I think I can go, this is when I'll launch. Like, having a think about what's going to happen and making some notes is incredibly important, incredibly important. So I think that's something that over the years, I think people have listened to me talk about don't do a business plan and then they just do stuff, which I love the fact they do stuff. But permission not to do a business plan is not permission not to think about what's coming up and what's going. So I think planning out on paper, as you said, if I get the truck at this date, when will I launch? When will I have time to set up? Who will be doing it with me? How will it work? And going through those details and using the different questions, who, what, why, when, to plan through what will happen, I think is incredibly valuable. And I think if you're listening to this and thinking of launching a mini experiment for your business, like, doing the thinking up front is incredibly important. So please take that on from what Keith has said. I think that's an incredibly, incredibly valuable piece. Considering the risks. See, I've got mixed feelings on the considering the risks, Keith, because I think we should consider the risks and we should think about what would go wrong and what could happen and mitigate them. Then we have to let go of them and get on and try it, because the risks are actually what stops people trying things. And you've got to think about them. You've got to know, okay, my risk is I don't make any sales. My risk is I've got these payments. My risk is I don't know, it's a food business. Someone gets food poisoning. My risk is this, my risk is that, and then I will mitigate them. Then you've got to put those down and get going. So I do think it's incredibly important to mitigate the risks, but at some stage you have to just do, because you can't know all of the risks, which actually brings us on to your fourth learning, which was have an emergency fund. I think that in the financial independence world, we talk a huge amount about emergency funds for your personal life. And what if the washing machine breaks down? What if the car breaks down? What if you lose your job and you need X months of expenses to cover you whilst you find a new job? Like, we need that emergency fund because it gives us security and protection. But we don't talk about it enough in business. And I don't actually know if that many people in business have an emergency fund. And for Rebel Business School, when COVID hit, all physical events were cancelled. Like, in 3 days, we lost the entire of our income around the world. And our savings grace was that I had a huge emergency fund. I had a year's worth of cash because I'm paranoid of not being able to pay the bills, look after people. And I I always want that kind of money hanging about. So I'd always been a saver. The whole business philosophy of Rebel Business School is don't spend money if you don't have to. So I saved and I saved and we scrimped and we did everything ourselves. And I'd rather work than spend the money. And I put us into that position. Maybe that slowed down our growth a bit because I could have spent some of the money to grow. However, when COVID hit, we didn't have to overreact because we had that emergency fund. So I love that you've highlighted that. And every single person listening to this, start creating an emergency fund for your business based on your expenses. That's exactly what Keith said is like, how much are you going to spend a month? And start by getting a 3 month emergency fund and then maybe build it up to 6 months plus because you just never know, do you? You just never know what's going to happen, what's going to change. That financial security allows you to breathe and make better decisions. So I wanted to build on what you said because I think you've highlighted incredibly important things for everyone listening to this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Similarly to how people run their personal finances. Most people are deep in debt, buying stuff they don't need. Living month to month, and it's probably safe to say a lot of people running their businesses that way. And in fact, my employer, they have a policy of expanding at the speed of cash, I would say. And they're able to keep all their employees when the market, or when the market goes down, and when their industry is having a hard time. And so yeah, definitely it might slow the growth, like you said, but it's definitely going to protect you for the unexpected. So yeah, um, definitely a good policy.
You have been on an adventure and a half, Keith. An adventure and a half. And I'm so impressed by your enthusiasm, your energy, the way you just make things happen and do things. You've told us your learnings about that. Is there anything you regret from what you've done?
Oh, yeah, that's a deep question.
There's a big question.
Yeah, I would say going back to the being prepared part. Overall, I'd say it turned out to be a positive experience. Whether I would go back and do it again, I would probably put those steps in place, like I said, with the emergency fund. So, yeah, I would say my regrets would be maybe biting off a little more than I could chew, or at least being, maybe a little too optimistic, where I was kind of basing my strategy on, oh, maybe this will set me up to be able to, go out on my own as an entrepreneur. But it was kind of putting a lot of
Mm,
eggs in one basket, and the plan kind of only worked if I was able to go out and do it full time. And so I kind of put myself in this tight spot where I didn't intend ever to be working the day job, doing the army and everything, and the food truck for more than a few months. And so once it got past that point and I saw that it wasn't going to be a good long term solution, then it kind of felt like I wasn't making progress towards my goals, or my goals had changed. And um,
yes.
so yeah, I would say that's kind of where I landed on that.
So, changing pace slightly before we wrap up and move on, what most excites you about the future, Keith? Like, we've done the mini experiment, we've got the learnings, we know what we've done. Uh, you made some incredibly happy customers. You made friends. You did a huge amount, and I'm so impressed with your energy. I I'm interested. What excites you about the future and where you're going next?
Yeah, the one thing you just reminded me of, though, when you were talking about all the good things, I just wanted to circle back to something that I mentioned on a previous podcast. I had entered the contest for the best tacos in my town of Maricopa, and I don't think I'd gotten the results yet,
Yes.
though. So yeah, the results came in. Thanks again to my large family voting for me every day. Even being a brand new food truck, only operating, a month or two, I actually ended up getting first place. I have the plaque to prove it. Maybe we can use that as the thumbnail for this show. So,
The
so
cover
yeah,
up for the show. I love that.
yeah. So definitely, it feels good to look back on what I look.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. It feels good to look back on what I accomplished. Like I said, listening to those old episodes about all of the problems that I had to solve, it really did fill me with some pride and got me kind of emotional at points of just thinking like, wow, like looking back, I was crazy for doing some of that stuff, but the fact that I pushed through, it definitely gave me some feelings of pride. But going forward, I would say back to the goals. I remember something you had actually mentioned during one of your talks at the financial independence kind of get together that I saw you at Mr. Money Mustache headquarters there. You talked about goals and working towards them. You know how your goals might change. You know, always be adjusting. And so at the beginning, my goal was to launch this food truck to potentially leave my day job. And once those goals changed of, hey, this isn't taking me where I want to go anymore. It actually was a relief to make the decision to leave it, So I would say that's another thing you could learn is don't get so attached where you're, set on following one course when it's not actually taking you where you want to go. And so my current goal is to get out of debt. Once I saw that my food truck was not going to get me there, then I started getting excited about selling the trailer, about working some overtime and doing whatever I got to do to get out of debt. And in the future, maybe I will revisit it once I get some funds in the bank. But right now, I'm just excited to get on a better financial footing, get the debt out of my life, and spend more time with the family. Find ways in the future to possibly make some money while spending time with the family.
I love that goal. I love that goal of getting on a strong financial footing. And it feels as though you're not actually that far away. If you can sell the truck, clear the consolidation loan, get some overtime, pay off the car note, you'll be completely square and at that really good starting point to plan forwards again. And I think getting away, paying off the debt, getting away from the debt and creating the space for you to be able to do what you want to do. I think we had a mad rush to get to, let's get the business going, let's get the food truck out there, let's make it all happen. This will fix everything in one foul swoop. And there was a chance it would, but we had that mad dash to do it. And I think we didn't quite make it this time. We learned a huge amount. Now's time to just take a breath, get straight. You've got time. You've got the family. You've got a lemonade stand to run. And then we can work towards the next step afterwards and having that time. So I think I just want to say from me and everyone else listening, thank you. Thank you for sharing the journey, the adventures, the highs and lows, the ups and downs. I think you've been incredibly open and I really appreciate it. And thank you, Keith. And you are always welcome back on the show. I'm always here to chat to you about whatever you want to do. And we really appreciate your time and energy.
Thank you so much, Alan. Yeah, I appreciate being on here. I think it's helped me as well to kind of walk through things and also just having that on record. I'm not great about documenting things, and so having these recordings to go back and listen to, like I said, it was emotional at times, and just glad to be able to have that and look back on it in 10 years and say, if I can do that, I can do anything. So.
Absolutely. And it'll be interesting when your kids come to you and say, I want to start a business. You can tell them to listen to the episodes before they get out there and start. Be
Yeah.
fascinating to open that discussion with them. Keith, you're a legend. Thank you so much. Good luck in the future and see you soon. The final message from me for this episode is about debt. Debt is something that I've had a passion to eliminate for such a long time after seeing the devastating consequences of my dad's borrowing in my own family and later on to the people around me and the different people I've encountered in life. And debt, in all its different guises, even when you're building a business, debt to build a business, it is debt. And we're running the Rebel Finance School right at the moment. We have a bunch of people on the Rebel Finance School who are big into property. And every time I mention debt being bad, they say there's good debt and bad debt. And I kind of agree if you have an asset and you borrow some money and it's cash flowing, but that cash flow is not guaranteed forever. Things change, stuff happens. And if you're in debt, you have to pay the debt back. Otherwise, they're going to come to you for the debt. They're going to look for the assets that it's secured against. If you build a business with debt, you are putting yourself at risk. And I don't care what you say about that. You are. If things go wrong, you're going to have to pay that debt back. It's not your money. It's not your money. You have to pay it back. Or you have to go bankrupt, which is a hideous process. I watched both my mum and my dad. My dad did it twice. My mum I watched do it. And it's a year-long process to come to the other side of debt and going bankrupt in the UK. Then it completely messes with your credit score, with your ability to do things for many, many years afterwards. And the consequences of my dad's debt have plagued us for 20 years afterwards. And I just think we need to think carefully before we borrow money, before we promise to pay things, before we do things. And you probably all know this, but my biggest belief is there is always a way to do it without debt. There is always a way to pre sell, to find the customers, to make the money. There's different ways to do things. So, the biggest message I want you all to take from this episode and one we've got coming up, which is about an entrepreneur who went in heavily into debt to build his business and didn't realize that it was on an interest only repayment. Debt follows you for years, decades after it's been around. And it can cause you huge, huge problems. So I want you to think once, think twice. Think, what would Alan say if I'm considering taking this loan? Think, is there another way? Think about how you can do it without debt, because trading from profit is where the power is. If you've got profit, if you've got an emergency fund, if you've got sales, you can feel empowered that you're building your business from something that is real and cash flow, not from something that is borrowed and like building your business on sand. So build from cash, build from profit, sell first. It is critical to the success of your businesses. That's the message I really want you to take. So please go out there, sell, make money, generate profit, create an emergency fund, get yourself a stable and financial base to build from, and have fun making money, because profit sets you up for the rest of your life. You can have any life you want to. Choose to build something cool. Choose to take action. Choose to work to make your dreams become reality. Stand out. Be different. Be yourself. Be a rebel entrepreneur. You've made it through to the end of the show, and I promised you a special announcement, and also I have someone with me to help announce it.
Hello, it's Katie here, Alan's wife.
Yes. That's not your defining feature, but that is how people will understand you for today.
I thought it was the best way to introduce myself to your audience.
So, I don't know if you knew this, but Rebel Business School is 10 years old. It's our 10-year anniversary since
10
Simon
years.
and I ran the first course in Weston-super-Mare for Alliance Homes, and 40 people turned up not knowing what to expect. And neither did we.
So if you're 10 years old, does that make you kind of preteen, just starting to get a little bit feisty, a little bit moody, a little bit talking back?
That's just about right, yes. And to celebrate our 10-year birthday, we have a gift for you. So Simon, my business partner, Katie and I have decided that we want to create a gift for you.
So we've built this course for you called the Extraordinary Life Course, and we want to give you everything you need to set yourself up for the best year yet. How do you set yourself up for the best 2023 you could possibly have?
Because Simon, Katie, and I have spent a long time thinking about how do you build extraordinary? How do you build the life you actually want to live? And we don't care what your version of extraordinary is, because the fascinating piece is that it's different for everyone. My version of extraordinary life is different to yours. Yours is different to Katie's. Katie's is different to the person who's listening to this over the other side of the world. And it doesn't matter what life you want to build, there are tools, techniques, and mindsets that help you to make more progress.
I like doing jigsaw puzzles and playing with data.
That is Katie's version of extraordinary. It involves spreadsheet, data, and data visualization. To some of you out there, you might be horrified at spending your day doing that. And that is the beauty of life, is that we're all rich, diverse, and weird, different extraordinaries.
If data does light you up, please feel free to get in touch.
So we have this course. We've designed it exactly for you. We're going to run it just like we did Rebel Finance School. It will be every Monday night for 90 minutes for 5 weeks, designed to give you everything you need to set yourself up for an extraordinary 2023.
And it will all be online. We'll be going live at 8 p.m. UK time. If that time doesn't work for you, we'll be simultaneously streaming to YouTube Live, which will be recorded, so you can catch up at your leisure, because I know that time zone does not necessarily work for everyone. But don't worry, you can catch up whenever you want during the week, and then we'll be ready for the next week.
So if you are up for learning some new things, for allowing Katie, I, and Simon to facilitate some conversations about what extraordinary means to you, and coming up for a plan of how to build it in 2023, then all you need to do is sign up, because as with everything we do, it is free for you. It is our gift.
Free?
Yes, free. We're just doing it because it's the right thing to do. So all you need to do is go to alandonegan.com/extraordinary. That's alandonegan.com/extraordinary. Sign up and join us on the 21st of November.
Can't wait.